Alternative Affairs is the best in alternative music talk, news, and interviews with your favorite bands, by fans, for fans. From the Alternative Affairs studios in Tampa, Florida, here's your host, a man with a face for podcasting, Jason Curtis.
That's right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Alternative Affairs. We are for fans, by fans, and the best in alternative music, news, and interviews with your favorite artists. In not-so-breaking news, as we've all been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic over the past 4 to 5 months, we've all had to make a lot of adjustments in our personal lives. My adjustments, unfortunately, had to happen a lot sooner. I've had to take some time off to focus on my full-time career and put family and financial matters ahead of things for a bit, so I do apologize for not getting content out a lot sooner than I should have. But Alternative Affairs has not gone too far. We've never truly left you and have always wanted to come back to deliver more content to your ear holes, even better and stronger than before. In breaking news, we recently released episode 6 and 7, a special 2-part episode with Will Knack of Blue October. We are now back in the studio producing several new episodes. We're also working on some new formats, including an Alternative Affairs on Tour format. We also partnered up with several new podcasts, including Just Sway and Horrorful Podcast, which is now part of the newly formed Curtis Peterson Podcast Network. Really excited about this. With that said, I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, the host with the most from Just Sway Podcast, Mr. Lucas Peterson. How's it going, Lucas?
Hey, Jason. I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this venture here. And looking forward to this.
Hey, Lucas, now that we've gone through all those little formalities, got out there, kind of gave my grievances out to the fans there, all the listeners, I think we got to kick this shit off. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm with you.
Our special guest is a musician, songwriter, and producer. He hails from Northern Michigan, a loyal Detroit Lions fan, owner of Orb Recording Studios in Austin, Texas. Although he's been associated with many amazing projects, he primarily plays bass for multi-platinum recording artist Blue October. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome a good friend of the show, Mr. Matt Noveskey. How's it going, Matt?
It's going great, man. That might be the absolute best introduction I've ever had in my life right there.
Really?
That was fantastic. Yeah, that was really good. Thanks so much, man. I'm honored to be here. Appreciate it.
No, man, it's awesome. Always a pleasure to have you, and really excited to talk. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to Alternative Affairs. This is Episode 8, In Quarantine with Matt Noveskey. Hey, Matt, let's start off by talking about Orb. I know we've heard it in past interviews, but can you give us a little bit of background into how you got the studio started?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, man. I can go on for days, honestly. Yeah, Orb's got a history, man. It really does. And it's crazy because just the other day I was talking to somebody about this, and it's been 6.5 years that we've been open now. And in some ways it feels like we've been open for, a decade. And then in some ways it feels like it was just a month ago. It's crazy. It's
wow.
It's insane. It's insane to me that we're looking at 7 years at the end of this year. That's pretty amazing. But it was, but there was a good, 4-year lead in to the building actually being finished and being, the construction being done and our soft opening on January 1st of 2014. There was a good 4-year process before that. And it all started, CB, our old guitar player, CB, who's my partner at the studio. He and I were just sitting in the back of the bus one day when we were in Germany. Actually, we were on tour. And we were just talking about stuff and, about life. And I'd been really getting heavy into producing and making records. And CB just on his end, he had actually attempted to open a studio with another partner at one point. It never happened. It just didn't come to fruition. And
really? Okay.
And I don't remember exactly how it came about, but it was, it was kind of just one of those light bulb moments where it's like, man, I'm making records, and he's like, dude, I just see you working constantly. You know, you're always in the studio as soon as we get off the road, and I really would love to build a studio. I've always wanted to have a studio, and so it really just became one of those things where it was the perfect synergy and the perfect kind of like, you know, what he was bringing to the table, what I was bringing to the table, were complemented each other perfectly. And that's how it started. And it kind of started off as this like, well, why don't we find an existing space and we'll flip it and kind of do what most people do when they build a studio. And it's because usually with a studio, it's not necessarily built from the ground up. It's usually an existing space that's been, you know, basically like redone and has been finished out with insulation and soundproofing and everything that's necessary, you know, to make it a recording studio. And that's kind of the initial idea. But the more that we dove into it, and we brought in a guy who designed it for us named Mark Genfan, who was basically CB and Mark and myself. We were like the three musketeers when it came to this whole project.
Nice.
You know, it's like the three of us were in constant contact. We worked together very closely. We became very close. And Mark, being an esteemed, you know, pretty famous in that world builder of studios, he really cared, and we gave him a lot of free reign to be an artist with it. So he was very, very invested in it, you know, personally. And it was a long process just because we wanted to do it right. So we spent a lot of time researching gear, talking to producers, engineers, having meetings with them, you know, just everything. And throughout the process, though, the thing just kept growing and growing in scope. And it went from, like I said, from it being one studio, an existing, you know, warehouse or whatever, to us realizing, well, if we're doing this in Austin, this is what's missing right now. Like, this is like, if we're going to do this, if we're going to do this and we're going to, you know, we're going to be a studio, but also be an incubator for talent, like, this is the kind of facility that really isn't existing in this area. Let's not be one of you know, let's not be one of 20. Let's be one of one, you know? So, and so it really, like, it took a lot of risk and a lot of faith. Because it really, like I said, it grew in scope. It grew in scope financially, and it grew in scope, you know, just emotionally, because there's so much to do, you know. But and then it also kind of pushed the opening back a little bit, because it was, okay, this is going to take a couple years now instead of, you know, whatever, 9 months or whatever, you know, 10 months.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, about the financial part, because, I mean, was this an open checkbook, or did you guys, like, was this an investor that came in, or was this something where, hey, look, you know, we're fairly successful now. We obviously had all the success with Foiled and everything else together.
Well, funny enough, you know, the situation's kind of funny, because a lot of times studios are built like, you know, usually you'll have a team of investors or whatever that is, if it's a big commercial space like what we have. Fortunately, we did not have to do that. And, you know, not that, you know, it's not like, you know, we're musicians, you know, it's not like I'm like rolling from being a musician, but we are successful musicians and able to support our families, and extremely blessed in that way, you know, so that's a good thing, you know. But the nice thing about CB and I being partners and owning this thing is a lot of the gear we already had, you know. So, like, a lot of it we already, like, between the two of us, it's like you go into our library and it's like, whoa, you guys have a ton of guitars and basses and pedals and amps, and it's like, did you guys get that for the studio? We're like, no. Like, this is mostly spillover, you know. It's like both of our wives are like, get that out of your house.
This
like,
is my pedal from 18 years old playing in the bar.
Exactly. You know, so we already had so much stuff that it was like we could pretty much open a studio already. It's a good situation because it was a big investment up front for sure, you know, and just like any business, you know, it takes a lot of time to pay that off and kind of to dig yourself out of that hole. But I am happy to say that we've actually been doing better than we expected, and we're even busy now, which is crazy.
Well, let's talk about some of those producers that you've worked with, and some of those big acts that kind of came through the doors of Orb. So I have a list here of producers that you've worked with that kind of helped pave the way for you. Steve Lillywhite, Tim Palmer, the great Chuck Reed. I've got to know what it was like to work with Interscope's Chuck Reed.
Oh, man, Chuck. I mean, Chuck is like, he's one of those guys that, like, I guess, you know, and this isn't like a slight to his abilities or his technical abilities or anything like that, because he's amazing. He's really good at what he does. But the things that I remember Chuck most are the hangs. which like just being with him, just hanging out with him and talking
Right.
to him and laughing my ass off because he's so funny. Like it's, I was talking to somebody the other day. We had a client that I really hit it off with at the studio a couple weeks ago, and his brother-in-law is Adam Blackstone, and Adam Blackstone is my hero. Like, he is if I could be anybody in the music industry, I would be him, and
Nice.
He's just an incredible producer, bass player, music director. He's Justin Timberlake and Rihanna, and does the Super Bowl halftime show. The guy's very successful. But we were talking, and he said, Adam told me, one thing he said to me that I'll never forget is he said, a lot of times when you bring in players or you hire musicians, you bring in somebody more about their personality than their technical ability. It doesn't matter if you have all the chops in the world. If you're an asshole, you're not fun to be around.
Right.
Plain and simple, If you got a good personality and you're cool and you're fun to hang out with, you're going to get the gig.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like when I think about Chuck and I think about my experiences with him, I think more about the hang than anything. And not, and I love Foil's one of my favorite albums that that was our breakthrough record. And
Right.
you can't take that for granted. So, I mean, kudos to him for that. But Chuck was somebody that, it's like when you've got, huge stars, like just stopping by his house, because they're buddies, it's the kind of surreal, it's like for us, it's like, being from Texas and then going to LA and working with him and like 50, like Justin said before, he's like there for breakfast and 50 Cent pops by, it's like, but so it's like, wow, this guy's like literally living with rock stars, just like in the hills of Hollywood, but he's so cool and down to earth and laid back and funny and fun and not pretentious. Working with Chuck was a cool experience because I at the time, I had not been producing for very long myself. It was really something I was still just getting into. And so I think Chuck to me was kind of in a way, kind of taught me some things. And some of the things that he taught me were to be laid back and fun and cool and not take yourself too seriously. I think there's a way to be cerebral, but to also be fun. You know what I mean? And to be able to stay on task, but not be, barking orders and making people feel uncomfortable. And Chuck he's one of those people. He's really fun to be around. He's hilarious, man. He's a super cool guy.
You're listening to Alternative Affairs in Quarantine with Matt Noveskey. We'll be right back. Looking for some new rock and merch? Go to orbrecordingstudios.com/shop for awesome tees, raglan tees, and even decals and koozies. Orb Recording Studios is owned by Blue October bassist Matt Noveskey and former guitarist CB Hudson. They've produced with huge artists from around the country like Pentatonics, Justin Bieber, and more. You've got to check out this new line of merch. I got the new raglan t-shirt and it's actually really comfortable. Check out the shop today at orbrecordingstudios.com/shop. Now, on with the show. Talking about some big artists that you've been able to produce and produce with, right? So I don't think many people know, and if I do have the source correct here, you helped produce an album with DMC, as in Run DMC, back in 2016, right?
Yeah, I've actually worked with him twice.
Nice.
Once as a producer, bass player, co-writer, and once I played on a song that he rapped on, actually. That was a totally unrelated thing. And that to me was definitely like working with him in person on the thing that I co-wrote and produced with him was one of the most surreal like moments of my life, just because I grew up. Tougher Than Leather was like one of the first cassette tapes I ever bought, and Raising Hell, Tougher Than Leather, Run DMC, like I grew up on that, and so I worshipped Run DMC. I worshipped the Fat Boys and the Beastie Boys, and like that was a big deal to me. So working with him was like I just the whole time, I'm like, man, I gotta be cool. Like don't be that guy. You know what I mean? Don't freak him out. Don't weird him out. Like just act normal, and he was so friendly and down to earth and such a sweetheart.
That is cool. So what's going on at Orb today? Anything exciting? Any new acts we need to be keeping an eye out for? I know that you post a lot of stuff on Instagram. You like to keep people up to date.
Well, I'm working with a lot of younger kids right now, actually, which I'm really excited about.
Really?
And it's kind of a new venture. Yeah, I partnered up a good friend of mine named Bernard Porter. He has an artist development company in Nashville called PCG. He approached me about, basically starting a new division of PCG here in Austin right before everything with COVID happened. And so it was kind of funny timing, but I've worked with a few clients that are part of the PCG program that live here in the area, that live in Round Rock or Austin. And it's crazy, man, because some of these artists that I'm working with are some of the most talented kids I've ever heard. And I mean, they're not just talented for their age. They're some of the most talented people, for any age that I've worked with. And it just blows my mind. I'm like, how do you find these artists? Because they're so incredible. They're so good. And I've been really blessed because I've been able to work with a few of them now. And man, I worked with a country artist who sings and writes her own songs. She does some co-writing with some other people in Nashville, but she's 12.
Wow.
12 years old.
Oh, wow.
And she is phenomenal. She sounds like Dolly Parton. So I've been really, really, really lucky to kind of have fallen into that when I did, and to be able to work with some of these younger artists, because it's kind of like the next generation of artists and the next generation of talent they all seem to be coming to Orb. It's weird, honestly. It's just weird that it's all worked out the way that it has, but I am not complaining.
No, that's amazing. I mean, it keeps you working and everything. And speaking of Nashville, actually, that was one of the spots that we were actually looking to start our Alternative Affairs on tour. My producer is actually in Nashville. I have family there. Would love to be out there. And if you ever, want to get any of your artists out there in Nashville on the show, I'd love to be there and do that.
Oh, man, absolutely.
That would be exciting.
Love to.
You mentioned working with the younger artists, and I've listened a lot to one of the artists you produce. And she's a little older than 12. But Alex Nicole.
Yeah, Alex.
Her.
Yeah,
she is fantastic. I've been in touch with her through Instagram. Jason and I are going to try to talk to her next month. Cool. How do you kind of go about working with someone who is younger? Do you drastically have to change your approach as a producer? Kind of give me some insight there.
So here's the thing. I feel like working with younger artists that are maybe making their first or second record, or who are still kind of finding themselves and figuring out who they are, I don't think it's for everybody, because I feel like a lot of producers, are kind of, I guess they're a little spoiled and a little lazy. They just want to work with stuff that's already established and is kind of a proven commodity. It's like, it's easier to work with somebody who already has a name, right? It's a lot harder to take something that nobody cares about yet and get people to care about it. That's way harder than working with somebody who already has thousands or hundreds of thousands of fans, So I take a lot of pride in doing that and working with artists who don't have a name yet. But there's pros and cons to it, just like anything. One thing is when you're working with younger artists, you do have to remember that you're mentoring just as much as you're producing. So you're doing just as much teaching tools and teaching habits as you are actually recording songs. And that's the big deal. So if you don't like to teach and you don't like to pass on experiences and knowledge and take time out of your day to sit down and teach someone, it's not a good gig for you. I love doing that. I love, I actually went to school to be a teacher, so I love being in that role, and I love being in a mentor role. You have proud parent moments when you work with younger kids, man. You do. Like, you have moments
I
where
could
you're
see
just
that.
like,
absolutely.
You do. You have moments where it's like, oh man, like I feel a lot of ownership in this, but I also I'm just so proud to take off the training wheels and see you blossom and see you turn into something really amazing and really cool and special. And, with Alex, I have a really funny story. The first time she ever performed live, and I was there, I was at this event, she had been working with us for probably a year and a half, maybe a year and a half, and really developing her sound and really figuring out who she was, and her sound was really coming together. But she had an opportunity to get on stage and sing with Amy Grant. Whoa. At an event in front of 3,000 people. Wow. And she'd never performed live before. And I was nervous, man. I was like, I don't get nervous getting on stage and playing in front of 10, 20,000 people with us. But for her, I was I was shaking. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, she's never performed. Is she going to bomb? Is she going to freak out?
Yeah,
and she got up, she got up there like it was like just another day. Killed it. Just killed it.
Of course she did.
Absolutely killed it. Crushed it. And I'm like, man, this girl has never sang in front of, you know, a room full of people before. And she just got up and just and like Amy Grant was just praising her up and down, left and right. Like it was, you know, so like to me, that was like one of those things where I was like, this is why I do what I do.
I heard her talk about that story when you guys did an Instagram live together, maybe a couple months ago. And then I think she ran into Amy Grant at the airport, and Amy Grant recognized her, and she was like baffled by the fact that she was recognized.
That's pretty cool. It really is pretty cool. Yeah, we that's right. We did touch on that, and I mean that's, you know, again, like those are just the things. That's what you work for, right? That's what you put all the work in. That's what you grind for. Moments like those, you know, it's like it's incredible. And the other thing for me that I love about working with younger, and I guess like you could say untainted artists, is you get a hold of them before they have bad habits, and you get a hold of them before they're jaded and think they know everything. And I work with artists who are, don't get me wrong, some of them are my friends, you know, but they're just so stubborn. And so like, I don't like, you know, it's like they're spending more time trying to be cool and not do things than they are actually just letting go and taking risks. You know, it's like, well, I don't want to be this. And it's like, well, if you worry so much about, you know, being taken the wrong way or people judging you, then you're not really moving forward, and you're not really progressing in your craft. And working with younger artists, they're not concerned with that, man. They're just stoked. You know, they're just like, I'm in the studio, I'm making a song. Holy crap, listen to this, you know? And so it's very innocent, you know, and it's very like, I don't know, it's a different animal altogether. So it's like the process is in some ways it's a lot more fun because there's energy.
I remember my first time in studio because I wanted to do voiceover acting. And the first time in studio, I was like, oh my God, I'm in a real studio. Like, I'm in a booth. I got a microphone coming from the ceiling. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, this is cool, right?
Yeah, it was totally cool. And I had no fucking clue what the hell I was doing, but I just did it. And it was a lot of fun. And luckily, the guy behind the glass knew what he was doing and told me what I needed to do. So that was it, right?
There you go, yeah.
So, hey, listen, we got to pay some bills right now, so we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to chat with Matt about some of his other projects. So stay tuned. You're listening to Alternative Affairs. Alternative Affairs is proud to partner with World's Finest Chocolate with their 10 million bar challenge. Staying at home is so much easier when you're fully stocked with chocolate. The chocolate you know from school fundraising is now available to ship directly to your home. Best of all, when you buy a box, another box will be donated to your local healthcare facility or emergency responder station as part of the Chocolate for Healthcare Heroes campaign. They have all of your favorites: milk chocolate, caramel, almond, wafer, and more. Shipping is included and will be sent via FedEx safely to your home. Don't forget to share on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram using hashtags 10 million bar challenge and Alt Affairs Cares. When you post the link to the website, be sure to include the promo code Alt Affairs. Go to www.wfchealthcareheroes.com. Use the promo code Alt Affairs at checkout. Your order will be shipped directly to your home, and another box will be sent to a local healthcare facility. Welcome back to Alternative Affairs. I am your host, Jason, my co-host, the host of Just Sway podcast, Lucas Peterson. What's up, Lucas?
Yo, just excited to be here. This is cool.
Yeah, man. So we're talking with musician, songwriter, studio owner, and producer, Matt Noveskey. Matt, we alluded to it before. We wanted to talk about some of the projects that you've been a part of, right? You've talked about a lot of the projects that you've helped produce and you've recorded and all the cool experiences that the young kids have done with you. But you've been part of some really cool acts yourself. So notably, right, you've been part of Blue October since 1998. and there was a small little time where you left Blue October right around 2002, and you joined or started a project called A+ Machines. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, man. A+ was a lot of fun. It was kind of, without, I guess I sound a little corny saying this, but I was kind of finding myself, and
oh, for sure.
I guess I wanted to know that I could write for myself as much for anybody else, and I really kind of, I was lucky enough to get together with some really incredible musicians that I'm become lifelong friends with. And it went from being a passion project and being, a side project for fun into something that we really got invested in and took pretty seriously. But at the end of the day, it was I guess somewhat short-lived. I think we actually wound up doing it for about 3 years because it did overlap with me coming back to Blue October. We did continue to do some shows after that, and then we actually did a reunion show 2 years ago, year and a half ago.
Oh, cool. Where was I?
Obviously,
shit.
It was at the Dirty Dog Bar
underground. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. Okay, not well advertised.
Very low. It was a low-key event. But we're still all really close and really good friends and talk all the time. And obviously I still continue to work with Alan, who was a part of that project. But
Alski was, okay.
Yeah, Alski was the drummer with A+. And that was kind of, I guess I went AWOL for 2 years from Blue October. And I was gone for a little while, and when I was gone, that was really what I was working on during that time, was the A+ stuff. That was like taking up my I was pretty much, I guess, the primary songwriter.
Right.
So really kind of the thing that would keep me busy, and keep me from getting in my own way, and being an idiot when I was in my early 20s.
We all were.
Too much of an idiot at least. But it was a really fun project. We never really did any proper recording, which, funny enough, considering that's like what my whole life.
You had an EP,
now,
I believe. I saw that you had an EP, but I couldn't find any recordings, so it's not really published
garbage.
out there. Was it?
It was crap. Yeah, it just wasn't. We were a band. I feel like we're a band that's like a lot of fun live.
Okay.
But the songs had some cool moments, and there's some really cool riffs and like just some super dirty, gnarly riffs in there. But the stuff that I was writing at the time, as far as like lyrically, it was just, I wasn't saying anything. I listen back to it now, and I'm like, what was I saying?
Wow.
What was I talking about? I wasn't connecting with anybody.
Gotcha.
So I like to think that I've grown a lot as a songwriter for sure. But lyrics definitely were not my strong suit back then. It was definitely more the music.
And just to help everybody along with some of the timelines, 2002 was right after Consent to Treatment. You were touring there. Unfortunately, Universal Records had just let Blue October go. Did that play into that decision to kind of say, I'm still finding myself, let me go work on something else?
No, because I was with Blue October for quite a while after we actually got dropped. We actually went and started working on History for Sale, and it wasn't History for Sale at the time. It was just an EP, right?
Right.
But we did Amazing and Ugly Side and Razor Blade, and I think some people are like, well, you weren't on the History for Sale record. Well, I was on the History for Sale record. I was just on half of it, and
Gotcha.
So I left halfway through that process, so it was pretty far after the label thing. The label thing really didn't play into it at all, honestly. It really had a lot more to do with me personally, and not so much the band, honestly. I was kind of going through some shit.
Yeah, no, of course. I could totally understand. Obviously, like you were saying, you're trying to find yourself. You're going to go off, do some other things. You're young, right? I think you're only maybe about a year older than I am. So we're right around that same age group where, I was probably going through the same type of shit at the same time. So
right. Yeah.
But hey, you went back to play with Blue October, notably, and as the saying goes, the rest is literally history. From there, right, you did come out with History for Sale, and then later Foiled, which obviously was your breakout album. But just a few years ago, I'm not even going to dare to say which year it was because I don't have it in front of me, but you, Jeremy, Justin, and Steve Schultz put together a really cool project that seemed to, it's kind of like Blue October Junior. It's almost it's Blue October's
That's a good
sister.
way to put it.
Yeah, it's Blue October's junior cousin, twice removed, kind of sound there. But yeah, Jeremy and Steve have both been alluding to some new stuff with Harvard of the South. Are we going to hear some Matt on that stuff?
So the four of us, the four of us really are the band, you know. So, but really,
Good.
you know, Jeremy and Steve are kind of they're like the Keith and Mick of the band, you know. It's
They're
like
the drivers.
they're the drivers of the band for sure. And Justin and I both obviously we contribute. We all write together. You know, but Justin and I are really like lucky to be along for the ride because it's such a cool band and the
That's
songs
great.
are so awesome, you know. But Jeremy and Steve have put a lot of sweat into it, you know, and they've put they have a lot of emotional equity in that project. And it's a lot of fun, and it's something I hope to be able to do forever because I love doing it. I get to play in that band. I get to like play. I mean, which I guess I get to do some of this in Blue October too, but I feel like I get to play guitar on bass in some ways, you know. It's like grab a pick, turn up the distortion to 10 and just go ape shit, you know. And I really love doing that. I have a lot of fun with it. But it is, like you said, it's kind of, I mean, you have three members of the band, so of course there's going to be a lot of similarities, but it does kind of have its own identity too. And it's really, I guess it fits a little bit more with like the shoegaze kind of crowd. Well, I feel like we embrace that for sure.
Well, I'm really excited. I actually have an email going out probably tonight or tomorrow to both Jeremy and Steve to invite them out to the show. They've both committed. We are going to do an episode, Harvard of the South. Extremely excited to be talking to those guys about their new stuff. So really excited about that. So, you know, very cool. Now it's 2020. We're all in quarantine. I hear you're working on a new project. So you and Alski have been up to something, and it's looming. Your website, nothing is releasing any dates yet, but what have you been up to?
So, I guess I might as well just lay it out here, right? Our first song is actually being mixed right now. And so we're going to have a song released very soon. But the first song, we're going to give it away. We have a Patreon page because we're a baby band, you know, we're a baby project. And,
sure.
And so Patreon is a way for us to stay connected with people, and people kind of invest in us. And it's like, you know, it's not a ton, but it's enough that it really makes a significant difference to us.
Sure.
It really helps us. And so we want to be able to do something really cool in turn and go, hey, why don't we kind of make a little family vibe with our Patreon people and give them stuff that nobody else gets. And so we're actually going to give the song just to the Patreon folks.
Oh, that's great.
And then it's going to be cool. Yeah. And then eventually, though, we're going to have very soon after, we'll have another song that we're going to release properly on iTunes and Apple Music and all that. And what we're doing, though, is eventually we'll have a full album out. But what we're going to do is just release one song at a time. Lyric videos, all that. But yeah, Icarus Bell is what it's called. And it's really just Alan and myself. And we have a revolving door of cameos. We have a bunch of people that are going to be on this thing.
Can we get a sneak peek? Who's going to be on?
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't really been able to talk about this, I guess. So
awesome.
We've got, you know, Will and Ryan, and then we're definitely going to find a way to get Jeremy in there as well, of course. Got to have him do some percussion. We're going to have Justin do a vocal so we can get everybody from the band on, of course. But
okay.
And then we've got, you know, outside of that, we've got some of our really good friends. Carson Brock, who's a phenomenal guitar player here in Austin. He's playing on some stuff. We wrote a few things with Lucas Rossi. Lucas is definitely going to get on some vocals. Cat Whitlock's going to get on some vocals. Paco Estrada is writing a ton of it with me. He's helping me. He's helping Alan and I both with the lyrics right now. He's doing some vocals with me. Jeff Friedel from Perfect Circle is actually going to do some percussion for me.
Whoa, nice.
It's pretty awesome, man. It's Chris Perez, once again, talked about him earlier. He's actually going to do a guitar solo on this. So it's like, it's Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup. Like, it's a pretty broad range of style, you know. It's like you're talking. It's like, wait a minute. So Chris Perez and Jared and Jeff, like, how do you put all those together? Oh, Adam Gontier, another one. You know, one of my favorite songwriters. He's a good friend, and he is definitely down to lay some vocals down with us on the right song. So I mean, when it's all said and done, we're going to have a lot of people are going to be making some cameos in this. I'm hoping to get Kenny Olson, who I grew up with, to do a guitar solo on one of these songs. He said he would, but Kenny's like worse about getting back to you than I am. So he's like, he cracks me up because he's a guy. I'm like, I'll send him 30 texts, and then I'm like, I'm going to keep going because I know eventually he's going to respond. Like, eventually I'm going to get a response, But Kenny's that guy, so if I catch lightning in a bottle, I'll get him on a song. But at the heart of it, the actual band, the core of it is just Alan and myself.
It really sounds like you're not going to have one, like Blue October has one identity. There's always the lead singer who's consistent, right? You're always the bassist. Yeah. You got Ryan and you know what I mean? This does not sound, this sounds like it's just a free-for-all fun type of project. Do you feel like it could ever kind of maybe morph into something that is more static and actually has an identity?
It's funny that you say that. Like, I think that what we're discovering is that the common thread is the sound. And the common thread is that because Alan and I write all the music, and then really lyrically we work a little bit with a couple outside people, but because we write everything, the songs, even though we have different people featured and coming in, there is a common thread from song to song. And right now I've got 10 music beds done. I've got 2 with vocals, and I'm actually working on the next one. I'm hoping to get in next week to get it tracked.
Nice.
So my vocal will be the common thread vocal, but my vocal is going to be padded by friends, and it's going to be padded by other singers and other people that are joining and doing.
Okay, so you are technically the lead singer, and
I hate saying that, but yeah, I guess so.
Okay. And I take it Alan is playing guitar mostly, or is he doing drums?
No, Alan's drums. Alan is drums.
Sorry.
Yep, Alan is drums.
So you're guitar and bass, right? Okay.
Yep. And then so if we were to take this thing and turn it into, right now it's basically just a recording project.
Right.
But if we took that and made that, we talked about, if we're going to do a show, because at some point we will play some shows.
Do a live act.
So when we do that live, how does that look? And so to me, it's like, bass is, the songs are very bass and drum heavy in a very Jane's Addiction kind of way, so I'll stick to bass. I'll do some vocals, Alan on drums, and then we'll probably tap somebody like Carson, to come and play guitar and keep it a three-piece. Most likely.
Gotcha.
And then we'll just see what happens. If we wind up having a lot of female vocals on this stuff, then maybe somebody like Kat can come out and join us on some stuff. We'll see. But there's no way we're going to be able to do it without tracks. It's going to be track heavy for sure, because I'm playing like 30 guitar parts on every song right now.
So do we have a new release date? Do we have a release date for the Icarus Bell album?
So no, we don't. We don't have a release date yet because I'm still in the process of getting the vocals done. But I can tell you that Alan and I talk about this a lot, and we want to have the album completed by the end of the year.
All right, excellent. I think that's good enough. I think everyone's anxious to hear it. Sure. Obviously, you got a lot of fans through the Blue October fan base who obviously follow all of y'all's projects, which I think is pretty amazing too. Because as Blue October fans, I myself included, we love hearing all these extra projects that you guys are all doing, and I think it's just absolutely excellent. And speaking of the fans, right? The numerous fans that follow all your projects, you had mentioned Patreon. So if they go out to patreon.com, they'll be able to search for you. Tell them some different ways that they can get involved with you through Patreon. So it's basically, Patreon is a subscription-based thing, and there are different tiers. You can... I don't remember what the actual minimum is. It might be $3 or something, like $1.99 or $2.99 or something. Yeah, we use Patreon here for Alt Affairs. So
very cool.
Yeah, we do a tiered structure, and we start at like $2, I think it is.
I believe that's the same with us, and I think we max out at like $20 a month. And and there are obviously different rewards for that and different ways that you can be involved. And one thing that we're really good about, I should say Alan is really good about, because I'm terrible at it. Alan is really good at getting B-roll. He's really good at capturing the moment. Okay. And I'm really like into, trying to get lyrics done and vocals done. And I'll tell you what, man, he is so good about documenting everything. It's mind blowing. It's so nice to work with somebody that's so professional and stays on top of those things. And so the cool thing is we're like, man, we have so much cool footage and studio footage, and then so many like behind the scenes and so many stories that he's done a really good job of capturing that. And that's really just specifically for our Patreon folks. And then beyond that, what we'll do when the record is done, we'll have an executive producer package as well. Where you're listed as an executive producer on the record. And then, like I said, we're going to do some sneaky cool things, because we don't want to just do the same stuff everybody else does. We want to do some stuff that really is super cool, and you can only get it if you're on Patreon. Like having the first song, before anything's released. We both loved that idea. We were like, man, I think it's a great idea. People, absolutely. The fact that people are supporting us and we don't have a song released yet, that's unheard of. It's like, it's so genuine and it's so cool that we're like, man, we should just take this first song when it's mixed and just give it to them. I think that's such a cool thing, so yeah, that's pretty much it, man. It's a way to stay connected. It's a way to kind of keep it, very, very kind of one-on-one, which I love.
Well, the expert, so to speak, on a lot of things Blue October, he hosts a podcast just for Blue October, Mr. Lucas Peterson, who I have very here, cool. Which we have not heard much from. But Lucas, I mean, I mentioned this tremendous fan base and how they've been so supportive of all of these guys' extra projects, right? Harvard of the South, The Meeting Place, Tough Strings, with Ryan, and then you've got Icarus Bell. So many other things, obviously, and Justin's off doing his solo thing, and everyone's really supportive of that. Give me your perspective on that story.
Well, the interesting thing, from a fan side, is that how much it translates. You guys have an incredibly loyal fan base, on the Blue October side, because of the giant connection for 2.5 decades with so many fans across the U.S. and across the world. And then when you guys do anything outside of that, everybody seems to really follow it as best they can, when they're informed about it. And I can attest to myself, I was there about this time last year when you played with Ryan at The Meeting Place, that show over in Fort Worth, which was fantastic.
Thank you.
But
thank you.
The cool part is here, and hearing you talk about Icarus Bell and Harvard of the South, and the Meeting Place too. You guys are doing it for the art.
Absolutely,
That's what speaks to all of us here on this side, because it's not about the commercialization. Sure, everybody's doing it for a purpose. Everybody's got to eat and pay for their mortgage and things like that. We all understand that. We do our best to support that, but there's that true, genuine art to it, and we love it. There's not really a question in there, just more a comment. And I think that's why all of this stuff really works. And I'm glad you guys keep doing it. And I'm glad everybody keeps supporting you.
Man, that means a lot. I really appreciate you saying that. And I think that I actually like your answer way better than mine. It's like, that's like a good way to answer that last question. Honestly, and it kind of takes me back to when Alan and I first started doing this. It didn't come from a place of like, hey, we have to start a band. It was very like, hey, man, I miss you. Let's get together and write. Let's just get in a room and jam. And if it's a 10, 12-minute song, then great. Who cares? Who gives a shit? We're not trying to please anybody except us, So we really carry that. And you're absolutely right. It's the same thing in Harvard of the South. And Ryan's one of the most gifted creative people I've ever met in my entire life, and I get to be in a band with the guy, and like he blows me away constantly. But when you hear how his music evolves from his first record to this last one, when it became Meeting Place, it's mind blowing, and it really is all about the art. It's all about expression. It's all about being creative, and there's no other motives at all. That's all that matters, So I love that. I love being surrounded by people like that too. And then not only that, but we're all so supportive of each other when we do these individual things.
All right, that'll do it for us here on episode 8 in quarantine with Matt Noveskey. Matt, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Really appreciate it. You're always welcome. Would love to have you on after we get Icarus Bell out and we've got some listens and we've got the whole album out there. Would love to have you on as a follow-up and let's talk about the music when we all get to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. It would be awesome to get Al, since that's one of the nice things about having two people in a band. It's really easy to organize things. So maybe we can get Alan and I both. Would
love to have Al to
jump on with you. That'd be cool.
Well,
Thanks, man.
You could check out more about Icarus Bell at IcarusBellOfficial.com. There are links to their merch as well as their Patreon pages. Please go out there, show your support, and listen to Icarus Bell when that album finally drops. Before the end of the year. We're only committing to before the end of 2020.
Yeah. We'll definitely have a few songs out by then, for sure.
That's awesome. And if you go out to Patreon, obviously you get a chance to be one of the first to listen to that very first song.
Very soon.
Thanks again for listening, everybody. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, CastBox, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm your host, Jason, and you're listening to Alternative Affairs. Alternative Affairs is made possible by member listeners just like you. Get involved with us and become a member by going to patreon.com/altaffairs-podcast. Become a patron for as low as $1. Anything is appreciated to help keep the mics hot and the content flowing. Once you're a member, you'll receive access to exclusive content, discounts on future merchandise, early access to full featured episodes, and you can even co-produce a full featured episode with yours truly and the Alternative Affairs team. Alternative Affairs is produced by the one and only Mr. Jim McCarthy. All music royalties for this episode are fully licensed and paid for in full compliance with copyright and music license laws and regulations. Special appreciation to our Patreon members. Thank you so much for being a part of the Alternative Affairs family. Special appreciation goes out to our sponsors, World's Finest Chocolate. We are proud to partner with World's Finest Chocolate. Buy a box, donate a box to your local healthcare workers. Go to WFCHealthcareHeroes.com and use the promo code ALTAffairs when you check out. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram using the handle @AltAffairsPodcast. Make sure that you're using the hashtag AltAffairs. We want to share all of your fan experiences and stories on social media. Have an idea or comment for the show? Or if you know a business that wants to advertise with us, send us an email at altaffairs.podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Jason, and you're listening to Alternative Affairs.